Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Claudette with Miss Puff Creative Corner, and today I've got 3 super easy, budget-friendly Easter DIYs that are perfect for adding a handmade touch to your spring decor. We are using upcycled materials, Dollar Tree finds, and a little creativity to make some adorable pieces that are both charming and unique. So grab your scissors and let's get crafty. Starting with a sweet little fabric egg pillow that's perfect as a bowl filler. First up, this cozy little Easter egg pillow made entirely from scrap fabric I had lying around. It's soft, rustic, and full of charm. I started by printing a simple egg pattern that I got off of Canva. Then I sized it down to 67% so it was just the right size to tuck into a bowl or a basket. I then cut out 2 egg shapes using copy paper, and this would be my pattern. For fabric, I went digging through my stash and found some old surgical caps in spring florals and a soft cream fabric that used to be the backing of a patchwork quilt, perfect for that worn-in farmhouse feel. I ironed the fabrics flat, then laid the paper pattern down. You can either trace around it or just pin it directly to the fabric. I decided to cut one of the egg patterns into half horizontally because I wanted the front to be two-tone, floral on the bottom and cream on the top. The back will be one full piece of cream fabric. Once I cut both halves, I placed them right sides together and stitch a straight line with a 1/4 inch seam allowance to join them. Then I pressed the seam open to keep everything nice and flat. Next, I grabbed some batting, cut it to match the full egg shape, and layer it between the front and back fabrics, with right sides facing out this time. I pinned all around the edges and then took it to the machine to stitch around the perimeter using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, leaving a small opening to stuff. I filled it with polyfill until it was nice and squishy, then I closed it up with a final top stitch. But if you're not into sewing, you could actually just use hot glue or fabric glue here instead. Now comes the fun part, embellishments. Okay, so back at my work table, I added a strip of lace ribbon from the Dollar Tree right across the front where the 2 fabrics meet. I used my sewing machine to tack down both edges of the lace ribbon to the egg. You could also use glue instead to glue it down. A little of the batting was peeking out from the edges and I loved that soft frayed look. So I took it a step further and ran a bit of sandpaper along the seams to distress it even more. To age it a little, I grabbed my Tim Holtz Distress ink in Vintage Photo and brushed it lightly around the edges of the egg. To finish it off, I tied a cream cotton ribbon into a small bow. Then I connected the ribbon to the egg using a garment pin. So I pinned it to the side right on top of the lace ribbon. Then I add some little slant cuts to the tail of the ribbon. And then I decided to add a cute little tag, and it has Happy Spring on that, and I distressed those edges too as well with the Tim Holtz Vintage Photo ink. And I connected the tag to some twine and I just looped the twine through the garment pin. I brush a bit of that same distress ink over the bow to pull everything together, and that's it, a cozy handmade egg pillow that looked like it came from a high-end spring market, but it's made from scraps and love. For my second project, we're giving a plain wooden bunny a sweet little makeover using fabric, ribbon, and just a few simple touches. So to start, I'm going to take off the stickies and the price tag, and then I'm going to brush a layer of Mod Podge to one side of the bunny. I also going to give it a quick mist of permanent spray adhesive, totally optional here, but I like the added grip. Mod Podge on its own would work just fine. I actually found this bunny at Hobby Lobby for $2.09. It was originally $3.49, but with their 40% off seasonal decor sale, it was a steal. And you could always find 40% off at Hobby Lobby with this seasonal items. So after I put the Mod Podge on, then I'm going to spray the adhesive right over that. And I decided to use my patchwork quilt on top of this. So I'm getting a lot of mileage out of my old bedding. In the previous project, I used the backing, the cream color. That was the backing of the quilt. But I'm going to actually use the patchwork section to place on top of this bunny. So I'm going to cover the entire bunny with the quilt. And I'm just looking at the pattern to see how I want it to be laid out. Then I'm going to go ahead and press that down on top of the Mod Podge. And that heat is going to help the fabric to bond to the wood. So right here, I'm going to show you how well the fabric stuck to the wood. It did a really great job of sticking to the wood. So what I'm going to do is take my scissors and I'm going to trim around the shape of that bunny and take the excess fabric off. So when you're cutting around the edges, don't worry if it's not perfect, because I'm going to show you later on what we're going to do to clean up those edges. So I removed the little cottontail that was originally glued to the back. I just wanted a cleaner, more minimalist look for this one. So now when you trim all the excess fabric from the bunny, we're going to take a little bit of Mod Podge and add it to the edges just to keep those edges nice and clean, so it'll just look seamless. So I'm just going to paint around the bunny with the Mod Podge, and then later on I just take my finger and press the fabric in and make sure those edges are nice and smooth and it adheres to the edge of the wood. So if you want to take this even further, you could add a fabric pocket to the front of the bunny. Just cut a coordinated fabric square, Mod Podge it to the front, and stuff it with some mini faux carrots, flowers, or even wrap candies. So I tried it during my test run and it was adorable, but in the end I decided to keep this one simple. So I had a couple of ribbon options to try. I always like to do a little quick ribbon audition to see what color pulls from the fabric the best. So I end up choosing the mustard yellow ribbon, which picked up the warmer tones in the quilt nicely. So to add a personal touch, I create a tag. I printed off my computer. I even distressed the edges with the Tim Ho Vintage Photo ink. And you could also write something there too. You could handwrite something here like "Hello Spring, somebody loves you," or even someone's name if you're using it as a gift. So next I'm going to tie a off-center bow around the bunny's neck. So I tied it right on the roll to find the perfect length, and then I'm going to go ahead and trim it off of the roll. So once I created my tag, I'm going to run some twine through it, and I untied my bow and I just leave that first knot there, and I'm going to loop the twine through the ribbon and tie a couple knots of the twine, and then I'm going to go ahead and finish tying my bow. Now to the legs of the bow, I'm going to crimp them up, and also I'm going to cut a little V shape to the end of it. This little bunny would look beautiful as part of a Easter vignette, or even popped up next to a little floral arrangement. It's a quick transformation that looks like something you'll find at a craft fair, and no one has to know if it started as a plain wooden cutout. For our final project, we're keeping things quick, simple, and so sweet with this mini egg carton display made almost entirely from Dollar Tree. I started with this half a dozen speckled egg set, which comes right in its own little carton. So I love that rustic packaging. It's already halfway to being a finished piece. To keep everything in place, I added a dot of glue to the bottom of each egg and gently pressed them into the carton. You don't need much, just enough to hold them steady. Next, I filled the empty space between the eggs with dry moss. I tucked it in with a little glue to give it that soft, natural look like it was pulled straight from the garden. So you could also tuck in some extra greenery, some sprig, a tiny paper flowers, but we're going to dress it up just a bit more. I printed a simple tag from my computer, printed something that says Farm Fresh. I used my die cutout to cut out the tag. I distressed the edges with my favorite Tim Holtz Vintage Photo ink, and you could give this tag a gentle crinkle so it looks aged and handmade. To add texture, I grab a piece of gauze that I tea-dyed ahead of time. You can use cheesecloth, muslin, or any soft cotton fabric. I tore a strip and tied it into a loose frayed bow. The gauze texture adds such a cozy, cottagey vibe to the whole piece. Then I layered the tag and gauze bow together, glued them right onto the top of the cotton, nestled between the eggs for more dimension, and that's it. This one comes together in just a few minutes, but has such a sweet, curated look. Perfect for a shelf, a tiered tray. So sometimes the simplest projects are the most charming, so don't you think? And that wraps up all my 3 Easter DIYs made with scraps, repurposed fabric, and affordable finds. So whether you're crafting on a budget or just love making something with your own hands, I hope these inspire you to create something beautiful this season. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming up next. And let me know in the comment which project was your favorite. Are you team egg pillow, team bunny, or team carton display? Until next time, happy crafting and happy spring.